Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today, man, I am so excited. We're going to have a guest on here. Her name's Jill Lublin. She's a world speaker, author, and more importantly, or not necessarily importantly, but she is a publicity strategist. And if there's one thing we know about legacy, if you've heard me talk in the past, a legacy that nobody knows about doesn't matter. Okay. So the big part, if you remember my SMART goals or SMART legacy, the T is transparency, right? We've got to let people know what we're doing, or not that it doesn't mean anything to you or the few people you impact, but it's not going to leave like this lasting legacy across the earth. So super, super excited. Jill, go ahead and share with us your story, how you got into the publicity. Where did you start? Maybe even growing up, go back to little girl age, growing up, and why you're so passionate about helping people get their message out now.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the power of getting your message out now is what it does is it allows you to give your gift to the world. And well, my gift is being a messenger of messengers. And I wasn't always like this. I was shy. I was reserved. I didn't have books, of course. And what I've learned in life is to take risks, to put myself out there. I've had to train myself. Now that's why I'm good at doing it with other people, frankly. And so what I've done is I've created virtual publicity courses. You see, I've written actually 4 books, one of which is Guerrilla publicity. And so I took all that information and put it into an opportunity to actually get publicity done. And then when I wrote The Profit of Kindness, I thought, we got to do kindness circles. And now I run an intentional kindness community and help people have more kindness in their life. And I'm just super stoked to be offering these things. I think it's great ways for people to actually get publicity done, to actually be kinder in the world. But I'm just saying, me, like everybody, didn't start out this way. I started out like many of us, kind of fumbling my way through, trying to figure things out until I discovered actually what I am good at, which is promotion and publicity. It's really a natural gift of mine. So I love doing it. I've been blessed to speak on Tony Robbins' stage and on 6 continents across the globe. And now virtually, it's even easier. So do a lot of speaking and training and helping people in these virtual publicity courses get their publicity done.
Awesome. So tell me the story of when you tell me the story of what you were doing before you recognized you were good at publicity. Like what was the transition that helped you recognize that? I'm really good at promotion.
Well, okay. I went to law school and I was in law school and I actually, honestly wanted to always be an attorney because I thought that would be a great way that I could make a good difference. I'd understand the law. I've always wanted to serve people. And so I figured that would be a great way because I could understand how to actually do it in the system, so to speak. And then, I got to law school and I have this highly creative mind, and that isn't exactly good for law school, which is very linear, very detail, which, I'm good at too. But my best skill is really that creativity and coming up with new messages. So I dropped out of law school. Much to my surprise, and of course my father's chagrin. He's like, well, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I said. By the way, I didn't even know what that really meant. I didn't know what I was going to do. And he said, well, what is it? And how do you spell it?
I still don't know how to spell it.
Yeah, I tell you, it's hard to spell. But besides that, the reality is that I was really the first one in my family go to college. They had a lot of hope for me in terms of, oh, she's going to go to law school and make something of herself. And yeah, I don't think 4 books is too bad, right? But the truth is, until I actually got my first book out, which was Guerrilla Publicity, I don't think my dad still knew what I did. He goes like, "What is it you do? I don't. What do you consult in? I don't get it." Anyway, it's been a long and windy road, and I love it, and I've loved the journey, and I think life is a journey, and that's how we get to where we are, and each step is part of that journey, right? Mm-hmm. So it's been fun, and I climb one mountain, and then it's like, okay, what's the next? After my first book, Guerrilla Publicity, it's like, what's the next book, right? Or what's next? So I think that's part of a life journey.
Yeah. So let's go back even farther now, because now I'm intrigued. What was your family like growing up? Your family life growing up? How many siblings? Were you lower middle class? Were you fairly wealthy? And that doesn't always matter that you went to school, but like what was it like growing up that led you to the epiphany for you to say you always wanted to serve people? Like why? Like what was life like as a little girl and through your teenage years that made you want to serve people?
Probably because I came from a very dysfunctional family. I was that sort of anomaly in the family, the sort of black sheep. I don't know how you'd call it, but they didn't.
You're the white sheep in the black family, not the black sheep in the white family. Just
but I don't think anyone really understood me, and maybe I didn't understand myself, but they certainly were not an easy family. They were definitely blue collar, and like I said, not educated, not wealthy. And I don't know where that I want to serve came from. I mean, the truth is my dad was like a house painter. My mom was hoping that maybe she married someone wealthy, but she didn't. So they had a lot of struggle. My mom actually was divorced and married 4 times, right? But I'm the product of that first marriage. And it wasn't a happy marriage. It wasn't a happy family. It was a tough life. And I think part of what I realized was I didn't want to do the same. I didn't want to replicate that. So, sometimes we learn by example, and sometimes we learn because that's what we want to avoid, right? So I think in this case, it was what I wanted to avoid. And I knew that there must be a better way. I did have enough somehow intelligence and smarts to kind of pave my own way. And I was a bit of had to figure it out myself because I didn't have any good models. I really didn't. And so I think that created a lot of resourcefulness in me and resilience because I had to get through it. I mean, they weren't alcoholics or they didn't, beat me or any of that, thank God. I mean, they were nice people, but just not real capable parents.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's huge. And I think it speaks to, I think a lot of people probably in that situation. I'm curious, and you kind of did a little bit at the end of that statement there, but growing up now, because this is the one thing that I find super interesting in my own childhood. When I was younger, I thought my life was absolute hell and it was the worst. And like, oh my gosh, how do I ever get out of this? And then growing up and now becoming a parent, I'm like, man, I'm so grateful I'm alive. My parents did awesome. I'm just grateful, There's only gratitude at this point. So from a legacy perspective, not that you have to or are obligated to take your parents and help legicize their life and your upbringing, but like, what do you do now, or what are things that you've realized through the ages of your maturing that you now look back and you pull from what your parents gave you and say, you know what, I actually would like to carry that legacy through my life and to the next generation? What are some of those things you just really respect about your parents, despite all maybe the imperfections that we all struggle with, myself included? My kids are going to hate me for the first 10 years of their life. I'm okay with it. Like how are you legacizing the things that you really love and respect about them?
Well, a sense of fun. My mom, although frankly very irresponsible, was also really fun. So certainly I'll carry that legacy forward. And honestly, I'm grateful they taught me to really have to figured out for myself, and that sense of independence, that sense of self-love. I really had to learn self-love. That's a legacy, actually. And to love them no matter what, to forgive them no matter what. And I think for all of us, everybody's doing the best they can. That includes our parents and their stories of their generation, which of course, is different than our stories of our generation, and your kids' stories are going to be different too, right? And so one thing I've learned is forgiveness, acceptance, letting go. I think that's important.
And do you think that those were intentionally taught, or are those things that you picked up through observation, or are those things that you picked up, like you mentioned before, where it was like, hey, I found out what I definitely didn't want, and so now I'm more committed to those things in my life and moving forward?
I think they did their best, but truthfully, it was almost like they didn't have, shall we say, a lot to offer. And at one level, I was like the sort of star of the family. Mm-hmm. See, look, I even wear the stars now.
There you go. There you go. She knows what's up.
I'm wearing stars today. But the point is, and by the way, they appreciated that, and they loved that about me, and they did acknowledge a lot. And so what parts they acknowledged about my own wisdom as a young child, right? And I remember my father set up a chalkboard. What was that? Yeah, that's what that was, in the basement. And I taught my younger brother simple skills. I don't even remember, but we did. I was like a teacher way back then at 8 years old, right? I was teaching my brother on the blackboard or green board or whatever it was, and writing in chalk and having fun with him, who, there's a lot of actually mental illness in my family. And he too is mentally ill, as was quite a few members in my family. And I think looking back, that actually was something that, had I understood that better, would have made everything easier.
Sure. So some of the understanding. Well, I love that. So why is it so, from a publicity standpoint, because this is what's so fascinating and where I want to get into from a publicity standpoint, how do you know? I feel like every movie that I watch, every book, whatever I read, it always has like the protagonist, the antagonist. They've got the people who are really opposing themselves and that's what makes a good story. That's what makes something work. You have Apple pitted against Microsoft, and or against Android, and you have people go to the death, probably not literally, but figuratively, arguing one side or the other. And it really doesn't matter, but everybody gets more sales because of it. So, I mean, you have Dodge marketing against Chrysler, and the same person owns both. So it's always part of a publicity effort to create separation. But what I'm curious is, how do you create that separation, create the two people, but still honor both sides, so you're not actually putting each other down, you're just displaying the contrast rather than labeling one bad and one good. You're more just displaying the contrast to get more people to buy into your vision and your vision.
Well, I think the world is built, unfortunately, in my opinion, on competition, sure. Right? So I happen to subscribe to co-opetition, meaning everybody can exist. The question is, how are we different? And then how can we support each other? Listen, some of my best referrals come from PR agencies, and sometimes people who maybe want to get it done themselves, they send them to me, right? And we figure out ways to support each other. So I think it's a delicate dance. I mean, the truth is, when all of it's said and done, everybody wants more sales. The power of what publicity does is it gets you that. So if you got two companies fighting for a position, to become number one, you're going to pay attention probably to both. You're going to probably, as a consumer, make a decision. And the power of publicity is understood very well by marketers. And here's the reality. We live in a society where we are constantly being marketed to. Mm-hmm. And so why shouldn't they use whatever they can? I call it use everything you've got. Uh-huh. And if they want to use all aspects of getting noticed, more power to them. It's still up to the consumer to decide. from a public relations standpoint. As long as you're doing as good things and not hurting anyone, as long as you're in sort of we'll call it healthy competition, and everybody wants to be number one, why not? And getting to the front of the line. I mean, interestingly enough, in the Profit of Kindness, we were talking about Kleenex, right? And all these people now call any tissue they use Kleenex, even if it's not the Kleenex brand. Now, isn't that interesting? Great publicity for Kleenex. Isn't that? That's really what it comes down to. Even though my brand might be called Scotty's or something else, right? And so we all call it Kleenex. Now, wouldn't that be amazing to reach a certain level of major publicity that your whole brand is called, fill in the blank? Kleenex is a great example of that.
Yeah, or even if you're the standard. It was funny. This is a little bit off the topic, but I think it's applicable. So I was watching a TikTok of a roast. So there was the first one, Justin Bieber roasted everybody else, and then they had somebody come up and roast Justin Bieber, and I was fascinated because I saw both sides of it. And generally, a roast is actually like pretty targeted at the person that's being roasted, and it's like maybe a little bit exposing of their imperfections, for lack of a better word. But what was fascinating to me as I was watching this roast of Justin Bieber, and the way things were presented it was almost like they were roasting everybody else in the joke when they're trying to make fun of Justin Bieber, but in every joke, it just made the person that was juxtaposed them look worse than Justin Bieber. I was like, I don't know if this is this is not an effective roast. It's almost funny because his publicity, it's like, the reason this is coming up right now is he's the standard in that roast. He was the standard that everybody else was being compared to, as like he's the gold standard and everybody else can never measure up type of roast, facetiously, but that was that type of roast, rather than, hey, you're the low person, everybody else is better than you. It's so fascinating to think of like how that works. And in the case of Kleenex or anything, what if you were the standard, right? What if you were the standard that everybody else compares to? So Amazon is the standard that Walmart, drop shipping, and Target and everybody else is basing off of Amazon. Like, how good am I doing at drop shipping or having an online marketplace? Am I even close to Amazon? If not, I better still have all of my stuff on Amazon. So they're still selling on Amazon and their site because Amazon has a marketplace there. And
that's right. And you want to be with in the big guns, right? You want to be with the people who are effective. And that's really what we're talking about, is being effective and being powerful and being seen. That's public relations. And it can be done on multiple levels, the small levels, big levels, right? To me, it's not about size. It's about being the best you are in whatever you're doing. And I think that's the thing to strive for. Abraham Lincoln said it best. He said, whatever you are, be a good one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so my curiosity is, how do you, because I know a lot of people who I think are phenomenal people, but they don't really know how to share that with the world. And so then either nobody knows about them, nobody thinks about them, or because they are not very outspoken about how good they are, then people mistake their quiet confidence or humility as being conceited, for lack of a better word. And it's really just bad PR. But the reality is, when anybody gets to know these individuals or the businesses, it's like, wow, why do not more people know about you? And it's just because they don't know how to intentionally put their best foot forward, or they've been told in the past that it's being prideful to put their best foot forward. And so then they intentionally downplay themselves so they don't look too good in the marketplace. And it's kind of the opposite of what publicity is. So how does somebody like shift that mindset and say, you know what, it's good. And I should be showing everybody my best self. I should be almost bragging, not maybe bragging in a bad way, but people need to know what I'm good at.
People do need to know that you're good. You know, the reality is, bragging about being a best kept secret, please don't brag about that. Because the truth is, unless somebody knows about you, how can you give your gift? How can you really contribute? And that's why I love publicity, because it helps others to know you, to have that trust built in, the expertise built in, the I've heard of him somewhere built in. And familiarity is what's beautiful in marketing these days. Trust, familiarity, credibility, visibility. People need it and they want it. And they're not just going to buy one off like, oh, yeah, that looks good. I mean, occasionally that might happen. But if you want long-term staying power in the marketplace, publicity is a great vehicle to make that happen, whether you're a coach, consultant, small business person, one-person business, multiple, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business. The reality is publicity is going to get you there, and it's free. And it has third-party endorsement, which is major too.
So how do you, what are some questions that somebody should ask themselves of like to start the process of putting their best foot forward? They don't know anything. They just started, well, I shouldn't say they just started their business. It could be just starting their business. I believe in what I consider manufactured credibility. So if you go publicized right, you might not be the best, but nobody else knows that. So it's manufactured, and that's fine. I get it. And there's a time and a place for it. But what are some questions they should ask themselves before they start publicizing the wrong thing? For instance, I know somebody who they chose not to get onto a social media platform because they're like, once you get into a vein on this platform, you're kind of pigeonholed. Like the nature of the platform pigeonholes you into it. So like, until I decide where I want to be pigeonholed, I'm not getting on it. And so they stayed out, and now the app is big, and they could get okay size, but they're not going to be the viral content anymore because they didn't get in soon enough. So there's people who are hanging back, waiting to decide how to go forward. What are 2 or 3 questions they could ask themselves to just decide, this is how I'm going to start publicizing myself and start doing something?
So here's the thing y'all got to know. Publicity is an evolutionary process. You start planting your publicity garden now, because if you don't, you're going to maybe miss the boat, like in this case, right? Or miss the opportunity to go viral, to be at the launch of an app. I mean, whoever thought Amazon would be this big, as an example, right? Whoever thought fill in the blank. Yeah, well, but he didn't know at the time. And how many people started companies where they said, you're crazy? That's never going to work, right? So here's the thing. I say take the risk in most cases, right? And start with a message that works for where you are right now. Like, what's the message that you want people to get for where you are right now? It doesn't have to be perfect. It will evolve. Like, one of the things I teach is to look at your message every 30 days, because things do change, including your bio. Look at your bio every 60 days. One of the things I noticed recently, I know this sounds crazy, I actually spoke on Tony Robbins' stage, and guess what? It wasn't in my short bio. It was in my long bio. But I realized, wait a minute, let's move that to the short bio. So there are just always tweaks that we are all making in our world, in our lives. And so to prevent yourself from never making it to the first rung of the ladder, right? You start where you start, and it's not about perfection. It's about taking that first step on that ladder, and then you move up and up and up, and your message, yes, will shift and change. It's okay. Every time I have a new book, guess what? I got a new message. I don't keep the message stagnant or static. So it's important that you know that you can shift and change too, including your message. But let's start with something.
Yeah, just get out there. It's funny about books. I had one of like somebody that I have always wanted to interview, one of my favorite authors ever. And one day they requested to be on my podcast, and I was like, this is crazy, like law of attraction. So happy. And
who is that, Samuel?
Benjamin Hardy.
Oh,
he has some just phenomenal. He's a I don't know if he's an organizational psychologist, or I think it's an organizational psychologist, but studied tons and tons on the brain. And so he wrote a book. One of my favorite books was called Willpower Doesn't Work. And so I got introduced to this like 5 or 6 years ago, and I loved this book. And then he came on to talk about a newer book that I forget the name of it, but personality isn't permanent. That's what his new book was. And anyways, so he comes on and I was interviewing him and he said, look, the book, like Willpower Doesn't Work, that I don't even believe half of that anymore, because like half of it's still good research, and it was good research at the time, but I wrote that 5 years ago and I've changed so much in the last 5 years.
Well, this is the point, right? And guess what? I've changed in each book I wrote. Guerrilla Publicity, this is the third edition. Why is it the third edition? Because the first and second got outdated. Profit of Kindness, we're upgrading for who we are right now in society and in this world. And yes, I'm going out again with a new message for World Kindness Day, which happens to be in November 13th to be exact. So, the Profit of Kindness is a perfect message for World Kindness Day. Yes, you are always evolving your message. Yes, you are going out with what works right now and then taking it to next level. So do not be afraid with where you are right now, because it is perfect for who you are right now.
Yep, and I completely agree. And you can always change your mind. I reserve the right to always change my mind. I'm emphatically say what I believe today, and it's true for me today. And tomorrow it may be different. I may have an experience like, nope, doesn't ring true. So I love this. We're running out of time though. So if somebody wanted to have a deeper conversation with you, obviously they can start with your books. That's what I would recommend always, to before you go talk to the expert, do your own research so you can actually ask intelligent questions of the expert, not just stuff that they've answered 1,000 times in their books already. But like, where would they reach out to? Where would they get more of Jill Lublin?
Oh, thank you. So check out what I've done is created a super fun action guide for you. No nonsense, great publicity tips. And you can get that through publicitycrashcourse.com/free gift. And I think Sam's going to put it in the notes too. That's publicitycrashcourse.com/free gift. And here's the other thing. I've got a super great publicity masterclass. It's, just click the link and join me live in that, where I'm going to give you more great publicity ideas to get your name out there. So that'd be a great first place to get started.
Yeah, I love it. And guys, honestly, I have a long way to go, but I will say that when I first talked to the first publicist, I don't know what you call it, publicist? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a publicity strategist, but yes.
Publicity strategist. They gave me a list of stuff. I went and did it. And I went from being nobody to now pretty much anybody who Googles Sam Knickerbocker, I'm going to be on the top page, if not the #1 hit. I'm competing still with Southern Baptist preacher, which I love the guy. He has the same name. He has more people who watch his YouTube videos, his YouTube sermons, than watch my YouTube videos. So if you want to help me out, go watch my YouTube videos. But anyways, I pretty much own that page because of words like this, of helping me become a better publicist myself. So it works. I promise you it works. And I encourage you to go and meet with her. So this is Legacy on Rapid Fire. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Sometimes it's literally just a matter of time, but to me also that's an excuse. You just get more team, right? So I am at a point with needing more team to expand into what I'm doing next.
Yep, to purchase more time. I love it. So what's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished in your life?
Oh boy, that's a big one. Probably getting my first book out. The next ones were easier, but that first one is like, oh boy. It is a bit of a delivery. It is a bit of a hunker down and get her done. And then of course, promoting it properly. I learned a lot of things, and I'm an expert in publicity and promoting, but I learned a lot of things that I corrected for the next time around.
That's awesome. And what's your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
I think it actually would be the same. Getting that first book out, Guerrilla Publicity, was a major accomplishment. I remember going into Barnes & Noble for my first book signing, scared, by the way, and like, oh my God, but seeing, the poster and meeting and greeting people, it was truly the kind of thing that you go, wow, this is what it's all about. And when people come up to me and say, oh, I have your book and it's made such a difference for me, that's the kind of legacy that feels really good to my heart.
That's awesome. And if there was like one secret habit mindset or behavior that you believe contributes most to your success, what would it be?
Optimism, believing in possibility. I am a pretty optimistic person, even when things look down. And I stay that way. And if I'm not, I frankly don't go out. I mean, I occasionally hide under the covers like all of us. I've, had my share of hits and falls and failures. But here's the truth. I give myself a little bit of boo-hoo time. I do, because I think that's important. And then I get right back up. And, it's that old thing about get back on the horse, although I don't know about that part, but I do get back on the horse metaphorically. Yeah. And I start again, even in the midst of what seems like failure or something's not working.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So what are one or two books that you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Besides my own?
It can be yours. This is the funny thing. It's always a test, because some people are like, oh, they recommend all these other books. I'm like, you've written 3 books yourself. You wouldn't recommend them to anybody? Come on. So I'm going to absolutely recommend that you read Guerrilla Publicity, that you read The Profit of Kindness. And of course, my other 2 are excellent too, Networking Magic and Get Noticed Get Referrals. So whatever works for you, absolutely read at least one of them. I promise you, great things will happen. Awesome. I love it. And then, so here's my final question. And again, I should have probably asked beforehand, but I don't know if you even have children or grandchildren yourself. Do you?
No, I have furry angels. I have cats.
Okay. So we're going to adjust this question a little bit, but this is like what legacy you're leaving. So in 6 generations from now, your nieces, nephews, the next generations, if they were to sit around a table, this is like great grandchildren or that generation. What would you want them to be saying about the legacy you left 6 generations from now?
Wow. I would want them to say that she really impacted people. She made businesses better. She managed to simplify things so people understood it. And on top of that, she was a good and kind person.
Okay. And that's amazing. And I believe that's how I will remember you from our short interaction. I'm grateful that we were able to have you on here. I had those questions I was really curious to ask. I'm grateful for your answers. I'm grateful for what the value you're able to add here. I'm excited for people to reach out to you, because honestly, you got to get your message noticed. I don't care if you're just the world's best mom to the world's best pest control person, the world's best son. Get your message out there and let it be heard. So we'll talk to you guys soon, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.